This is Part 2, Episode 128. After the Night Temple accumulated the riches of thousands of years, who knew how many light elemental magical beasts populated the Night Saint Mountain? They were mostly powerhouses of the 4th or 5th step, but there were more than a few magical beasts of the 10th rank. The inherent conflict between these magical beasts of light element and the demons of darkness element was absolutely irreconcilable. If they were to decide to attack the mountain, they would meet with the collective resistance of all magical beasts populating the Night Saint Mountain. And that's without even mentioning the retired powerhouses from the Night Temple. The Night Temple was unable to transfer large batches of magical beasts to join the battlefield, but if the demons dare attack the Night Saint Mountain, Yang Haohan and Long Qianying will absolutely not have no hesitation to attack the demons' flanks. Therefore the main commander on that side of the battlefield, Demon God of Death Saminaga, carefully decided to only attack the dragon-resisting mountain pass and avoid the Night Saint Mountain. After entering within the golden fog, Long Haochen secretly let out a sigh. He was already different from in the past by far, and as a Golden Foundation Knight and a Saint Knight, his perception over light essence was already far different from in the past. The light essence in this place was not only rich, pure, but also moving at a special RYTHM. How could this be entirely orchestrated by a magical formation? As such, the reason why the Night Temple didn't permit anyone to cultivate here should be as he guessed, in order to maintain the concentration of light element for the sake of countering the demons. But Long Haochen felt that he was still overlooking something. However, he didn't perform an in-depth investigation, as this was after all, a matter of consideration for the Alliance and the headquarters of the Night Temple, and not something that had to do with him. Long Haochen saw a group of unicorns, each snow-white aside from a golden manet and spiral-shaped golden horn protruding from its head. Every unicorn had a pair of huge wings, pure white with their tips shining golden. In the midst of their walk, one could faintly see golden halos following under them. Among the ranks of these starlight unicorns, an especially tall one was flying in the front, reaching 6 to 7 meters height, with a horn over half a meter long. Its pair of wings were brimming with brilliance, only, the look in its eyes seemed incredibly shocked. Right, Long Haochen's current aim was a starlight unicorn, which are known as the highest grade of partners for knights. Hello, my friend. Do you still remember me? Long Haochen approached the Starlight Unicorn King leading the group with quick steps. When the Starlight Unicorn King saw him clearly, a screen of golden light immediately surrounded them. Long Haochen didn't try to avoid it, letting the golden light embrace him. The Starlight Unicorn's voice could be heard in his mind, so it's actually you, noble scion of light. It's a joy that I get to see you again. But I really didn't expect you to become so powerful in such a short time. And your holy aura seems to have become even more pure than in the past. The Starlight Unicorn appeared very familiar with Long Haochen. If one could say that the last time he had only acknowledged Long Haochen's innate talent, this time he approved everything about Haochen. That being said, he strode forward, and, lowering his head, he rubbed it against Long Haochen's hand. Petting the golden manet on its neck, Long Haochen declared, "Old friend, today I came looking for you, looking for me. Did something happen to you?" The Starlight Unicorn raised his head, a surprised look appearing on his face. Long Haochen replied, "I hope you would leave the mountain with me, and aid me." The holy light coming out from the Starlight Unicorn King became more powerful, and rapidly, his eyes became darker. "Noble scion of light, God's chosen one, I am unqualified to become your mount. And furthermore, you already seem to have a mount of your own." Long Haochen nodded, "That's right, I already have a contracted partner. But for some particular reasons, he is temporarily unable to fight alongside me. The demons came to attack us and already launched a holy war against us. We cannot afford to lose it. If we do, the whole continent will be put in a terrible situation. As a knight, I must resist the demons, and that's why I need your help. I don't need to bind you by contract, and only hope that you could become my comrademy friend and fight by my side. Understood, I am willing to become your comrade." The Starlight Unicorn King lowered its head, presenting its horn in front of Long Haochen. The matter went even more smoothly than Long Haochen expected. He knew that the fact the Starlight Unicorn King gave his horn for him to pet meant that he was acknowledging allegiance to Haochen. Lightly petting his very warm and sensitive horn, Long Haochen held its head. "Thank you, friend. I believe that you won't regret this. Let's go wipe out darkness together. If in the future, there is anything you need my help with, I will do my best to provide assistance." The Starlight Unicorn shook his head. "I only hope for you to forgive my original rejection." Long Haochen only showed a smile. "This is nothing. Back then, I was, after all, way too weak, totally unqualified to act as your partner. The Starlight Unicorn King gave him a grateful glance. "Your heart is made of gold. Thank you for your forgiveness." Saying that, he turned back and let out some cries towards his fellow Starlight Unicorns. These Starlight Unicorns, reluctant to part with their king, immediately gathered in the middle of the circle they formed. Long Houchen moved back to the side. He knew that the Starlight Unicorn King was bidding farewell to his comrades. This trip to the Night Saint Mountain went very smoothly. Long Houchen had taken a liking to this Starlight Unicorn King since the first time they met. He really didn't resent this Starlight Unicorn King for his initial rejection, and now that he met him for the second time, Long Houchen had a clear sense of the compatibility between the two of them. In fact, this Starlight Unicorn King could be said to be the closest to being a Starlight Divine Beast among the magical beasts. As for Divine Unicorns, they were the evolved form of a Starlight Unicorn. In the human records, there were not many Divine Unicorns. Long Houchen even wondered if Divine Unicorns could be a kind of Starlight Divine Beast. The Starlight Unicorn King shook its head. "No need. We are actually unwilling to leave this place. Here, our kin gain accelerated growth, as this is a place that is just for light elemental magical beasts like us. In some sense, this is our holy land. So is there even a reason why we would want to leave? It's not only the case for our community of Starlight Unicorns, the other communities mostly share this line of thoughts. The Night Temple doesn't interfere with us much, and at the times you come looking for mounts, it is also a choice on our side. If we are unwilling, the Night Temple would never try to force us. This is why our relationship has always been so harmonious." Hearing everything he said, Long Houchen felt like his concerns were relieved. At least, the Night Temple didn't let him down. "We can go, noble chosen one of God." Long Houchen softly caressed the head of the Starlight Unicorn. "We are friends, no need to be so formal. Just call me Houchen, okay? And I'll call you Star King. How about it?" The Starlight Unicorn nodded warmly, and the wings on its back vanished. Long Houchen didn't immediately ride the unicorn, but put on his gold essence foundation armor before moving quickly onto the back of the Starlight Unicorn King. The two of them were very shocked to find out that when Long Houchen sat upon the Starlight Unicorn King, the gold essence foundation armor felt as if it was melting around them. Unexpectedly, the Starlight Unicorn King was included in the phenomenon, and around its body appeared a layer of dark gold. Only, the dark gold layer around Star King was a lot weaker than for Long Houchen. But even so, the Star King could gain some of the armor's benefits, providing a perfect harmonization between his and Long Houchen's cultivation. This feeling was hard to describe, as if the two of them were made one. The other Starlight Unicorns saw the changes on Star King, and couldn't help but kneel down in front of that scene, full of worship. No wonder. No wonder some said that a Starlight Unicorn is the optimum mount for a knight. It turned out that he would give such a large boost to him, or at least, if compared to Haoyue, the boost of little light alone wouldn't be sufficient to match Star King's. Although Yating also had a pure light attribute, she wasn't the same as Star King. In comparison, Yating's help was more general, while Star King's specialization was boosts. The attacks of Starlight Unicorns were generally not their key strength. When riding Star King, Long Houchen really felt as if he had already become a knight of the 9th step. But unfortunately, the distance separating him from the rank of Divine Knight was still very large. According to his estimate, he would need at least 3 more years to gain the possibility of breaking through. Of course, these 3 years would certainly be extended due to the large barrier represented by the extension of the 9th spiritual cavity. Less than half an hour later, Star King brought Long Houchen to the foggy area surrounding the Night Sacred Mountain. As he hovered above the ground, Long Houchen jumped down from his back, and after having a small talk with the elder of the Night Saint Mountain, he finally brought Star King out from the Night Saint Mountain. "Star King, seeing that there is no contract between the two of us, if I need to conceal you, would you be able to return to the Night Saint Mountain?" Long Houchen asked. Star King shook its head. "There is no need for that. Even if there was a contract, this wouldn't be necessary. We Starlight Unicorns have our own methods." While saying that, Star King raised his head, and his forehead was lit with the shape of a 5-point star. Rich golden light gathered from that star, and with a flash of golden light, this star surprisingly came out from his forehead, landing in Long Houchen's hand. "I can enter this gold star. After entering, I will begin a state of dormant cultivation, waiting for your summons." Long Houchen had a flash of realization. "So it turns out that this is the reason for being named Starlight Unicorns, right?" Star King replied, "Whenever we activate this ability, we will turn into a hidden star. Need me to conceal myself?" Long Houchen shook his head and handed the gold star back to Star King. Lowering his head, he rapidly placed it back in his forehead. Let's go. Long Houchen's eyes were flashing. His journey for the 10 million contribution points had begun. Star King kept flying at a normal flying speed. Although he didn't have a formal contract with Long Houchen and was unable to link with him mentally, Starlight Unicorns were not known as the most fitting mounts for a knight for nothing. With a mere signal, he immediately started a counterattack, always responding to Long Houchen's expectations with his actions. For instance, just by sensing Long Houchen's left leg tensing up, Star King would head for the left side, with an inclination depending on the strength Long Houchen put into his leg. In the meanwhile, a soft light essence was already being transferred from Star King to Long Houchen's body. Long Houchen slowly shut his eyes, letting the internal spiritual energy in him rise up. A rich fog of light started to surround his body. It was storing power. In the distance, 10 figures were chasing after Long Houchen at lightning speed. As they approached, the sky became dimmer and dimmer. A knight riding a Starlight Unicorn out on his own? Could there be a better opportunity for them? After hearing this news, they immediately rushed forwards at their fastest speed. The powerhouse leading the group had the features of a fiend clan powerhouse. He had 2 horns on his head, a ferocious-looking face, was over 3 meters tall, and an immense pair of wings was flapping on his back, accelerating his flight. In his right hand was a blood-colored sword covered in black flames, and his body was surrounded with a smell of darkness. That was a fiend commander. On his back were a group of fiend clansmen, only they were not as powerful as that one, reaching about the 7th step in strength. No mistake, this was a team of demon hunter removers, fully constituted of fiend clansmen. As the area outside of the dragon-resisting mountain pass was under the supervision of the death demon god Saminaga, he naturally brought his direct subordinates along, forming an army of fiends, though encountering a team of demon hunter removers formed of only one race was still a pretty rare occurrence. This squad before Houchen's eyes was formed pretty recently, intended to deal with the situation at the dragon-resisting mountain pass. A team of demon hunter removers constituted entirely of fiends. In terms of synergy, maybe they wouldn't be as effective as an ordinary team formed of various races, but they were able to move faster and react even more effectively, as well as listening to the direct orders from the death demon god Saminaga. Star King, accelerate. At the time this group of fiends appeared in Long Houchen's field of view, he immediately gave Star King the order to accelerate. A thin golden fog appeared more clearly as Star King kept accelerating, and was already faintly visible. But if one didn't pay attention, he would basically not notice it. In addition to that, as Star King was flying, he led a golden 6-pointed star to envelop him, keeping Long Houchen storing power concealed. Finding out about Long Houchen's acceleration, the fiend commander had an evil grin on his face. Abruptly flapping the wings on his back, he unleashed some black light, shooting out light black flames and pushing him to accelerate at full force, without consideration for the consumption of his spiritual energy. As he took the initiative to chase after Long Houchen, a gap created itself between the other fiends and him, which were naturally falling behind gradually. Long Houchen's eyes slowly opened, his eyes' current expression appearing as limpid as when he just woke up from his long state of deep meditation. But this time, it carried a chill that wasn't present at that time. Star King's flying speed was growing faster and faster, indistinctly carrying an illusory feel. Even with Long Houchen on his back, his flying speed was not at all inferior to the Fiend Commander's flat-out acceleration. Both sides maintained the same distance as they approached the dragon-resisting mountain pass. Finding out that his acceleration was insufficient, that Fiend Commander immediately became anxious. As he unleashed a punch with his empty left hand, it abruptly burst out with a dark red light, producing an intense explosion in the air. Its propelling power caused his speed to rise once again. This method of accelerating came with a considerable consumption of spiritual energy and couldn't be used for too long. Yet it had the benefit that it would enable him to raise his speed beyond his limits. Although this Fiend Commander didn't know about Long Houchen's cultivation, he seemed to be sure that this was at least a knight at the 7th step from the looks of the Starlight Unicorn King. Killing such a knight would be a considerably great contribution, to say nothing about the Starlight Unicorn. What the demons liked the most was food, and although they loathed light attribute the most, their favorite food was magical beasts of the light element. That meat was especially tender from their point of view. Long Houchen's legs slightly sped up as he sat backwards, and Star King immediately understood his intention. Quietly reducing the frequency at which he batted his wings, he inclined to the side, and drew a magnificent arc in a high spot in midair. This was a large arc that was traced as the Fiend Commander following him kept nearing closer and closer, but it didn't change the fact that the fiends of the 7th step were still lagging behind. Swish! Star King's wings let out an air-severing sound, and his figure turned around in the midst of this arc, heading straight at that Fiend Commander. Given Star King's previous speed, turning back instantly was an impossible matter. But this arc showed that he was quite dexterous, letting him maintain an offensive power and speed that was directly proportional to his previous speed, minimizing the speed loss to the greatest possible degree. The Fiend Commander had in his eyes a quite malicious grin. This time, he saw that knight move, a heavy sword flashing with golden light right in front of him. The Fiend Commander could immediately determine that he possessed a human's glorious tier equipment, yet he still didn't see this knight as being worthy of a second glance. Although a Starlight Unicorn gave a good boost, the best-known feature of this kind of magical beast was its lack of offensive power. The greatest determinant for the Starlight Unicorn's utility was its knight's strength. However, a knight wielding only a glorious tier piece of equipment, even if not weak, couldn't possibly be a great opponent. What's more, his own allies were right behind him. In fact, Long Houchen was wielding his sword Rippling Light, which didn't reach the legendary tier yet, although this piece of glorious tier equipment could be considered pretty good. His mental force having received the boost from the Gold Essence Foundation armor, Long Houchen could easily grasp the movements of that Fiend Commander as well as the fluctuations from his spiritual energy, and even find out about the contempt and disdain filling his opponent. You dare show such disdain? You shall become my sacrifice in this case. Rippling Light was lifted up above his head, and the next instant an incomparably resplendent light burst out from this heavy sword. Such brightness was akin to the shining sun, immediately producing a great illumination although carrying no light essence. But because of this light ray, the Fiend Commander and the fiends chasing after him were distracted. The next instant, the rippling light sword in Long Houchen's hand came sweeping down. Simple and direct, the chopping motion used the simplest basics of a knight's abilities. A bright, golden light edge came into being. But it seemed extremely natural, as if devoid of any energetic substance. This light edge couldn't be considered long, only reaching a length of 3 meters, and caused the Fiend Commander to unconsciously use his black flame-emitting, blood-colored heavy sword to block it. Clang! The figures of Long Houchen and that Fiend Commander seemed to have merely bypassed each other. The two parties took a split second to separate in mid-air. Bearing Long Houchen, Star King immediately rushed straight at the fiends of the 7th step in the rear, as that Fiend Commander only kept rushing forward, showing no trace of turning back. When his rush reached a distance of 200 meters, that rush came to a sudden stop, and suddenly, an intense black liquid burst out in the air. The robust Fiend Commander had simply been cut in two in mid-air, and then fell from the sky. Long Houchen understood clearly that his identity couldn't be leaked. For this reason, he chose to use weapons and techniques that he had never shown the demons before. The abilities he was originally adept with could not easily be shown, and in these circumstances, he needed to change up some of his fighting methods. Long Houchen's previous attack was boosted by the epic tier Gold Essence Foundation armor, which provided a large boost to his spiritual energy and was in the spiritual Highland state due to the addition of Star King's spiritual energy. The attack clearly displayed the might from spiritual Highland. The incomparably dazzling glow clearly came from that. Just think, could Long Houchen's fully charged blow, which consumed over 30,000 spiritual energy, be something that Fiend Commander could block? Long Houchen had learned about the formidable power of spiritual Highland through experience. The might from the aria of the Goddess of Light coupled with his sword intent and the link between the sword and his body didn't even prove to be enough to break the defense of his grandfather, Long Qianying, who was only using an ordinary glorious tier shield. And why was that? It was due to spiritual Highland. Of course, the current Long Houchen didn't have as good control as his grandfather, who was able to accomplish all that in a split second. But even so, after undergoing spiritual Highland, his spiritual energies might tripled at minimum. 30,000 spiritual energy, multiplied by 3, his offensive power was enough to match the standard of 90,000 spiritual energy. Rippling Light's characteristic was its double attack. This could seem simple, but how could a single blow turning instantly into two have the same power? Because of the excessive power of Long Houchen's previous attack, the effects from Rippling Light weren't fully displayed, and the second blow only got roughly 30,000 spiritual energy inside, but this was added up to the terrifying power of the first strike of 90,000 spiritual energy. Adding this to the fact that both sides were rushing forward at a mad speed, the Fiend Commander dying instantly was not a surprising matter. In fact, this was under the premise that Long Houchen didn't even use any of his sword intent. A year and a half of bitter cultivation and the acquisition of the mighty epic tier Gold Essence Foundation armor could be said to have turned over within the current Long Houchen a totally new leaf. Everything went as in Long Houchen's calculations. At the time the two pieces of the Fiend Commander's dead body fell, he rushed towards the 9 fiends of the 7th step. Seeing their captain die instantly, these 9 were as shocked as one could imagine. How could they not be in total panic? What greeted them was Long Houchen's terrifying attacks. In an instant, Long Houchen abruptly leapt down from Star King's back. One could clearly see Star King's body letting out a long golden chain made out of light, clinging to his waist. While enabling Long Houchen to come back at any time, it also enabled the spiritual energy amplification to keep going. In midair, Long Houchen actually didn't unleash his spiritual wings, but was shot out like a bullet, rushing at lightning speed. 3 strikes of golden-colored light were launched in succession, and pitiful cries burst forth along with surges of blood. Like that, 6 of the 9 fiends of the 7th step died instantly. This just happened too fast. With the backing from Star King, Long Houchen was able to maintain spiritual highland even without preparations. The power of this attack alone was enough against the ill-equipped fiends of the 7th step, which ended up pretty much like a flock of sheep in front of a tiger. The last 3 fiends of the 7th step were in total terror, running away frantically. However, they were already too late. After getting rid of this team of demon hunter removers, Long Houchen didn't leave in a hurry, but rode on the back of Star King, picking up the corpses of these fiends in the eternal melody before gazing coldly at the other direction in the sky and then proceeding for the dragon-resisting mountain pass on Star King's back. About 5 meters away, a demon envoy's head ruptured in a split second, dropping from the sky. Long Houchen had found out about this demon envoy's mental probing long before. This was an ability similar to Eagle's Eye. Only, he didn't go deal personally with this demon envoy, only using his powerful mental power to leave him dead, the only shame being that it didn't give any contribution points. The fiend commander of the 8th step for 8,000 contribution points and 2,000 contribution points for every fiend of the 7th step. That's already more than 20,000 contribution points. Wait for me, everyone. I will do my best to gather these points the fastest I can to join with you guys. Are you guys still well? Still safe and sound? Just wait for me, you must survive at least until then. In the distance, the dragon-resisting mountain pass was already coming to view. Long Houchen was still far away, but could smell a reeking scent in the midst of the biting cold. The demons are besieging the city? In a hurry, Long Houchen brought Star King to the front of this battlefield while transferring his internal spiritual energy at a fast speed, absorbing light essence to recover from the previous battle. It was obviously the Gold Essence Foundation armor that was being replenished this way, as Long Houchen basically didn't make use of his own spiritual energy on the previous battle. Dragon-resisting mountain pass. Among all 6 grand mountain passes, the dragon-resisting mountain pass was the most extraordinary one. In regards to the defensive aspect, it should be the best, because of being established entirely using the mountain as a basis, while the main buildings were inside the mountains. Given the environment, even the demon god emperor would hardly be able to pass through it in a short time. However, the dragon-resisting mountain pass was also the hardest one to live in. The enemies weren't the only ones affected by the extreme cold of the area. The officers and soldiers of the dragon-resisting mountain pass were also affected by the vile weather. The life here was monotonous and dull. Outside of battle, everything would be all black. One would only be able to live inside the mountain, but such hard conditions would only contribute to increasing the knight's persevering nature and sturdy builds. In front of the dragon-resisting mountain pass was a slope 200 meters long, a very precipitous terrain covered by snow and ice all year round. Its entrance acted as a natural fortress only, after the experience of a year-and-a-half-long holy war. The current defensive weapons of the dragon-resisting mountain pass were mostly either destroyed in the hands of the demons, or the reserves of magical beast crystals to sustain them were insufficient. Now it was fully reliant on manpower to resist the demon offenses. In the distance, 8 demon god pillars were glinting on the horizon, dispersing dazzling light. The large army of demons was flowing like a tide, rushing towards the dragon-resisting mountain. It was reasonable for the demon god emperor to have assigned the deaf demon god Saminaga as commander for the dragon-resisting mountain pass. Launching attacks from the ground was indeed a true challenge, so aerial attacks had much better chances. Fiends were not only experts at flight and strong physically, but moreover, their clansmen were numerous. For sheer strength, aside from the demon god emperor's devil dragon clan, the fiend clan was the best. After all, star demons and moon demons were far from able to compare with the fiend demons. Therefore, after the two sides had gone through over a year of repeated probing attacks and defensive battles to gather experience, now most battles were about the Temple Alliance having to resist the combined aerial and ground-based attacks of the demon armies. On the ground, the ones leading the offense were mainly the demonic wolves and demonic bears. This wasn't because of their expertise in climbing, but because of their capability of enduring the cold. Because of this bitterly cold northern land, since the beginning of the Holy War the demon forces had undergone serious losses, but through constant reinforcement, the troops in the dragon-resisting mountain pass had almost entirely been replaced by those resistant to the cold. Demonic wolves are a powerful clan among demons. Standing in a way that is similar to humans, they have wolf heads, and their forelimbs have sharp claws on their tips. As they climbed the walls, their claws kept letting out crisp sounds upon contact with the ice. Compared to demonic wolves, demonic bears had a much harder time climbing. They had extreme strength, but when climbing, they would need their bare paws to create holes in the ice, and make use of those to keep their balance, which slowed down the process. But don't forget that among the 8 great demon gods standing outside the area of the dragon-resisting mountain pass lay the demonic bear's demon god Valefor, along with his main force. With him to supervise and lead them, the demonic bears spared no effort to follow the orders. Making use of their great strength, they steadily made their way up. As for the situation in the sky, it was the stage for the fiends. The omnipresent fiends kept assaulting the dragon-resisting mountain pass relentlessly from the air. Fiends of the 6th step or above have the ability of flight, but also can bear a lot of weight. Frequently, one would see some fiends being carried by the ones with the ability of flight. Fiends, demonic bears and demonic wolves. The attacks performed by the great fighters from these 3 races represented an enormous threat for the dragon-resisting mountain pass. But still, as the head of the 6 great temples, the Night Temple had plenty of trump cards for the situation. Above the city, a large amount of fully armored knights were lined up, glinting with the dazzling golden light that took the shape of a protective barrier. They blocked offense after offense from the demons. The mounts from the airborne knights were very uniform, formed solely of the unified and cultured heavenly horses. As a magical beast race of the 5th rank and a subspecies of the unicorn type, they are completely white, have no horn atop their head, and rely on their snow-white pairs of wings to soar above the horizon. The United Airborne Knight Regiment also had a deep mutual understanding with their mounts, their battle forces being the most reliant on the association between the knights and the heavenly horses. Therefore, in balanced battles, the demons would certainly be no match for the airborne knights. At the vanguard of the Airborne Knight Regiment stood a group of gold and silver-colored knights. At least 6 Gold Essence Foundation Knights and 100 Mithril Foundation Knights formed this group leading the Airborne Knight Regiment. Both sides seemed to have reached a vague agreement, as none of their powerhouses of the 9th step appeared on the battlefield, only soldiers of the 8th step at most were present. Immense barriers of holy light appeared in the skies, one after another resisting the magic bombardment from the hell demons. The Airborne Knight Regiment preserved a neat formation from beginning to end, ready to enter battle at any time. Their holy light barriers could be described as an impenetrable defense. Long Chenying stood in the highest area above the dragon-resisting mountain pass city. The city was formed with 3 layers, the bottom one being the most broad, where the army of knights underwent battle. The second layer was for the mags, all specializing in the ice element. In the dragon-resisting mountain pass, no reinforcement from the other temples were present outside of these mags. This was the great character and unquestionable integrity of the Night Temple, that preferred to let the other 5 temples provide assistance to each other. Behind Long Chenying were over 30 people. Amongst them, half were clad in Gold Essence Foundation armor, and the other half in armor reaching at least the legendary tier. Without a doubt, they were the true core of the Night Temple. Every one of them were fully equipped and prepared to join battle at any time. Attention, the Airborne Knight Regiment is to go down to the altitude of 100 meters and release Glorious Halo and Thorny Halo. Long Chenying's severe voice was heard. His sight was focused on the demonic wolves and demonic bears climbing upwards. Without a doubt, when the first batch of demonic bears climbed over the city walls, that would be the time the fiends would launch the aerial assault. The demons were fully aware that the humans knew about their fighting methods, and yet never adapted. Coordinating terrestrial and aerial troops as one was always the best way. Right at this time, the glints from the 8 demon god pillars brightened, and one could faintly see that inside of these 8 demon god pillars slowly appeared 8 demons. The one appearing in the biggest pillar was a grey-haired, tall and pale man clad in a grey armor, looking at Long Chenying in the distance. Right at this time, the demonic bears finally finished climbing the walls of the city. The demonic wolves launched frantic, almost suicidal, attacks. Their goal was simple, it was to let all the demonic bears safely reach the top of the city. With the defensive power and strength of the demonic bears, as long as they would be able to stand firm on the city walls, it would definitely inflict a huge blow to the Night Temple. The holy light formations from the Airborne Knight Regiment that went 100 meters down gained in power, and purplish gold and thorny halos as well as bluish gold glorious halos became incredibly brilliant due to the simultaneous release from many airborne knights. Furthermore, these halos were also glinting on the heads of the knights standing above the city. Hanyu was amongst them. On his left hand he held a heavy golden shield and on his right hand his scarlet wildness. Launching a shield charge, he ruthlessly knocked against a demonic bear that was just down climbing the walls. That demonic bear was also tough, supporting his own body with both his arms. It entered close quarters battle with Hanyu. With a loud bang, both the demonic bear and Hanyu were forced back by a violent collision. However, the scarlet wildness had already lashed out. It was presently radiating a white heat from Holy Sword. The combination of a heavy sword at legendary tier and a skill Holy Sword couldn't be easy to resist, even with the physical resistance of the demonic bear. In actual fact, although there existed a gap between the physical builds of the two, Hanyu's external spiritual energy was not much inferior to the demonic bear's. After bathing in the dragon crystal infusion, and with the addition of the forest boa training pills amplification, Hanyu's external spiritual energy was absolutely not below his internal spiritual energy. This was also the reason why everyone from the 64th Commander Grade Demon Hunt Squad still survived even after going through so many dangerous battles with an angry roar. The demonic bear was knocked back right after managing to climb above the wall, and was thoroughly enraged. The iron hammer in his hand was swung, aiming right at Scarlet Wildness. Right that instant, a figure fell in the midst of the two of them. It was a knight, sent flying by the powerful force of an enemy. The hammer in the demonic bear's hand kept going without the slightest hesitation, but Han Yu was extremely startled. He was faster to react than the demonic bear, but if his attack kept going, Scarlet Witness would surely strike the body of his teammate. With his deep feelings towards his fellow soldiers, how could he keep going? This all happened just too fast. Scarlet Wildness was already halfway there. If he were to try retracting his force, he would be the one suffering a backlash, and that fellow soldier would hardly escape getting crushed to death by the demonic bear. But if the attack kept going, his fellow knight would die by his hand. Since going to war, this was the first time Han Yu faced such a difficult choice. This was just happening too fast, giving him far from enough time to decide. A resplendent golden light glinted, and just as suddenly as the falling knight appeared, he disappeared in a flash of light. A myriad of golden lights burst out in that instant. Everything in the range of 100 meters was enveloped by the golden light. Within its scope, all the demonic wolves and demonic bears gushed blood, collapsing like wheat. Han Yu's eyes became moist, yelling loudly, "Captain!" He came back. Was it time for the 64th squad to reunite? Captain! Han Yu's shout was very emotional. After a year and a half, he was finally able to fight alongside his captain like before. He was now filled with the memories of his previous battles alongside Long Haochen. Ever since coming back from seclusion, he had been fighting in this holy war, making use of his battle technique and strength to establish himself rapidly. Although he was not yet a Mithril Foundation Knight, he was nonetheless a mid-ranked officer in the dragon-resisting mountain pass, responsible for defending a very large area. In the eyes of the other knights, the Temple Knight Han Yu was extremely outstanding. It seemed that he stood firm after every battle he fought. However, only Han Yu knew how lonely he had felt for too long. Since he had become a demon hunter, Han Yu was like a second knight on the team. He had no need to stand in the front, and only served as an important support for Long Haochen. With Long Haochen there, he was full of confidence, battling under his lead to attack the enemy together. He didn't need to put much thought into other matters, as simply following Long Haochen's command was sufficient. But after joining this holy war, thanks to his cultivation and outstanding performance, he gradually turned into a leader. He came to understand that many things needed to be taken into consideration as a leader, and that being a leader came with a lot of pressure. Having gotten used to following Long Haochen's command, he didn't really like these feelings. Many times, he was totally unable to display his full strength, and had to adapt to his other teammates. In times of desperate struggles, he would have an intense feeling of helplessness, thinking, "What if I had captain to fight by my side?" At the time Long Haochen's seclusion finished, no one was more excited than Han Yu. It was a sincere feeling of carefree excitement. Reminiscing on the adventures they had in the desolate hissing caverns, the illusory paradise, and the swamps of gloom, he thought, Captain is finally back. He's finally about to fight by my side again. Han Yu had been waiting far too long for this day. Although Long Haochen was fully concealed behind his dark gold-colored gold essence foundation armor, the sword-rippling light in his hand could not be faked. Captain was back. Indeed, Long Haochen was back. Having witnessed the battle start from afar, he came rushing as fast as he could. Besides, he had on his shoulders the huge pressure of the 10 million contribution points mission, and such battles were the best way to gather them. That was why he came in such a rush. Originally, Long Haochen was prepared to join the aerial battle on Star King's back, as the fiends and hell demons were already launching full-power assaults against the airborne knight regiment. However, he came to notice the brightly shining Scarlet Wildness on his way to the dragon-resisting mountain pass. Just like Han Yu had no difficulty recognizing him, how would he not recognize his own good brother? Therefore, Long Haochen renounced joining the aerial battle, recalled Star King, and landed on the ground in a flash, not only resolving Han Yu's great struggle but also launching some powerful attacks, greatly lightening the pressure on the knight, Han Yu. Long Haochen opened his left hand which grabbed the knight that barely escaped calamity. Spreading both arms, he directly gave Han Yu a big hug. The surrounding knights cheered loudly altogether. They didn't know Long Haochen, but recognized the Gold Essence Foundation armor on him. Having a Gold Essence Foundation Knight join the battle was not only a great help in terms of fighting strength, but also gave them a large boost in confidence and vigor. Captain, I can finally fight alongside you. Han Yu's excited body was shivering, and the two of them slapped each other's armor, letting out a powerful tinkling sound. Long Haochen let go of his hug, a smile on his face. We should go and attack the enemy now. We'll talk some more after the battle is over. Saying that, Long Haochen stepped forward with large strides, advancing towards the city walls. and you followed closely behind, looking at his taller figure compared to before. Tears fell uncontrollably on his face. What a familiar figure. I wish to follow him for a lifetime. It could be seen that the demon side discovered the changes here. As the demonic bears kept climbing, Long Houchen stood straight above the city walls, his gold essence foundation armor giving off orange brilliant rays that were enough to dazzle one's eye. Not turning into the focus of the battlefield would be hard in this situation. From the sky, Long Qianying had noticed Long Houchen's return long ago. At the time he noticed Long Houchen's return on Star King's back, a faint smile appeared on his face, thinking to himself, _a Starlight Unicorn King, there could surely be no better mount for him. This kid really knows how to choose. Rapidly, Long Houchen's battle started. The black figures of two enemies rapidly rushed to him, belonging to two fiend kings of the 8th step. Demons are well aware of how strong a foundation armor knight could be, particularly one that is clad in pure gold essence foundation armor. Such a powerhouse being in town was nothing else but a mortal danger for ordinary demons. And Long Houchen's last meteor shower strike got rid of over 100 wolfkin demons and demonic bears. The other wolfkin demons and demonic bears started to deliberately avoid his direction. Demons were certainly brave in a fight, but none of them would be willing to send himself to death for nothing. Looking into the distance, a trace of coldness could be seen in Long Houchen's eyes as he murmured the words, "That's another 16,000 contribution points." This video will end here. Thank you for watching.